On this week's episode of the Hava-Geek-Cast, it is all about International Tabletop Day. Drake has a ton of information, and we're going to get it all. Our focus today is just trying to talk you into coming down. This is the Hava-Geek-Cast. Mike here, and this episode of the Hava-Geek-Cast is all about International Tabletop Day, and here's the guy with all the scoop, my good buddy Drake Finney.
Hey, Mike, how you doing today?
Couldn't be better. I got like 16 cups of coffee in me. I'm doing fine.
You just haven't blinked in a while. Now, as you said, we're inviting everyone down to join us at Hastings in Lake Havasu for International Tabletop Day, and this has no hooks, nothing attached to it other than come down, learn some new games, play them. Even the group of Geek and Sundry, Ivan Van Norman has actually given us the head nod and thumbs up for what we set up and set together. So we sent him the commercial that we had done, and he approves it. So we have the head nod to enjoy our International Tabletop Day without worry or fear of Geek and Sundry coming and grabbing us.
All right, Drake, listen, man, give us a little history on International Tabletop Day. What's this all about?
International Tabletop Day was actually founded by one of the super geeks of the world, Mr. Will Wheaton, when he and a few friends decided that they would kind of put the challenge out there to just get everyone back to the table. And in 2012, he and the folks at Geek and Sundry decided to put out that on, I believe it was April 11th that year, that everyone was just supposed to get together and just play games. From there, it's grown to where it has become an international sensation that everybody gets together on that said day and comes to the table, and they do try out some games that are backed by Geek and Sundry that have been given the head nod as being the official games, but you're allowed to do any game on International Tabletop Day. They want you to put the hashtag sorry, a tickle on the throat. They do want you to put the hashtag International Tabletop Day, or share it to their Facebook page or website or tweet it, but it's one of just showing what you're doing and who you're doing it with, and as long as you're having a good time, they're good with it also.
Now, when we're talking about tabletop games, we're not talking about the traditional stuff from like the 50s and 60s where the family would sit around and play Monopoly for a couple hours once or twice a week, although that is valid tabletop. But what we're talking about is a lot more involved with that. It's more closer to old school D&D, but even more interesting than that, the range and breadth of games available these days, and the resurgence, the interest, especially among families over the last few years, has been pretty amazing, don't you think?
Yeah, I really do, and you're right. This one, if you want to bring your own tabletop game down, if you enjoy checkers, chess, Monopoly, Life, one of the traditional ones that you see in your Walmart or your Target, that's usually thrown out by Hasbro, then you're more than welcome to bring them down. But you're right, the tabletop industry has blown up, and I've got to blame Kickstarter because of that, because of the fact that people that had played Life and then, like you said, traditional Dungeons and Dragons, and then wanted to mash something up into them, started to do it, and they started putting out different ideas on Kickstarter, and from there we saw a billion-dollar industry just bloom because there's so many creative takes and creative angles. And I know that I used Kickstarter and ran across the business Cool Minis or Not, and they've got some of the most interesting, I guess you could say, marriages between your, say, Monopoly-ish type fun miniatures, and then you meld it in with the Dungeons and Dragons feel, and that's when things are going to be breaking out, which is Super Dungeon Explorer, which is almost like playing a 16-bit video game with a Monopoly feel on a Dungeons and Dragons board, and it's just a blast. So there's a lot going to be offered as far as tabletop games, as far as even card games. I know that the teenagers are planning on breaking out Batman Love Letters, which only takes about 15 minutes to play. It only has 15 cards in it, but your goal is to end up with the highest valued villain in your hand. And again, it qualifies as a tabletop because you're sitting And actually, that's really what's turned into. You're sitting at the table with someone more than even just a board game.
Sure, and this even goes back all the way to like Pokemon. That was the start of the new style. Well, considering that Pokemon's been around for a couple decades now, it's not the new style of anything, but it was the first of a new type of tabletop game. You know, those card games. And that kind of thing. And that grew into things like Cards Against Humanity and Munchkin, and which all fall under the category of tabletop.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up Munchkin, because that is one that's going to be played. And it's going to be played at International Tabletop Day at Hastings with us in all of its forms. We're going to start with the traditional Munchkin card game, which was just a fantasy-based card game as well, where, of course, you try to get to level 10 while stabbing your friends in the back and all that. But then we watched it grow into, which it's Munchkin Apocalypse, which started to incorporate not just cards, but now you had more game pieces and tokens into it, all the way up into Munchkin Quest, which actually is a full-on board game. But the boards are just as in the traditional Munchkin form. You kick down the door of the room next to you, and that's when you lay the next random tile piece, and you've got the monster in the room, you've got the effects of the room, so you end up with this different map of what the dungeon is each time, and there you're trying to reach level 10 as well, but then you have to get back out of the exit and deal with whatever the level 20 monster is. So, lots of great things that are going to be done, and you're going to have types of games all across the board. You'll have a traditional board game going on. You will have the paper and pencil D&D, but you're also going to have things like Dead Man's Draw, which is almost like pressing your luck. And actually, the 9-year-old of the daughters is going to be heading up that little table because she is just absolutely in love with that game. And it's just, keep drawing the cards, say when you're going to stop, you get to keep your treasure. If you go too far and you double up on your symbols, you bust and they go into the pile for discards.
So let's give a little detail on the specific event happening in Lake Havasu City at Hastings.
All right. At Lake Havasu on Hastings, which on London Bridge Road, right across the street from, actually not across the street, but right next to AM/PM, if you need a yard marker for it. It starts at 10 a.m., and from there we're going to go all the way till 10 p.m. We will be having Zach, Mark, and I will be main tabling, which will also be running on Facebook live stream so people can watch it with us. And we're going to have the main table as well as 2 other side tables, as well as about, I'd say, 4 to 5 other tables that will have people there ready to demo games with you, willing to sit down and try, or if you just bring some friends down and you find a board game you want to try or any type of game you want to try, you can sit down and enjoy it. Hastings is opening up their whole game library that they have. We're going to bring down the Hava-Geek-Cast library, which hopefully will keep growing as it does. Mm-hmm. And from there, it's just let's see what happens. So I know early on, about 10 a.m., Zach and I are actually going to be starting off with Dead of Winter. And on that's a zombie-based board game where you have to survive the winter nights, but one of you also might be a traitor trying to mess up the group. That's going to be a fun. It's a board game like you talked about. True tabletop, miniatures, dice rolls, card flipping. It's going to go probably a good hour. So we invite everyone to come down, watch it on stream. But after that, then we're going to break out into smaller ones like Legendary, also Batman Love Letters, Super Dungeon Explorer, Dead Man's Draw. We're on the main table, all of those. And just, if you get a feel, if you like something that you see on the stream or the feed, come on down. We'll have extra copies. Bring some friends. No purchase necessary, as they'd say in the sales world. Just come on down, have a good time, maybe find some new people to play with. And we also will be doing a couple D&D and Pathfinder sessions as well, including the fact that I'm going to take the Pathfinder beginner session set, which usually has your 4 iconic warriors, and instead what we'll be doing is taking 4 randomly rolled up goblins and seeing if the goblins can do the reverse of what the heroes were trying to do.
So once again, this is happening this Saturday starting at 10 a.m. Drake will be there right at 10 o'clock, probably a lot before. And I'll come rolling in later on in the afternoon. I got that other job that I have to do until then. But Really looking forward to this, and like Drake said, this isn't about trying to sell you some tabletop games. This is just simply an event for like-minded people who really dig the same kind of stuff to get together and spend a little time doing something they enjoy. And if you learn more about tabletop games and figure out a few games that you might want to get into, then that's all the better. And that's going to wrap it up for this show.
Yeah, that's it for me. I'm off to do a fundraiser with the Fidelity 46 Rainbow Girls at Movies Havasu. So if we see you down there, great. If we don't, have a geek week.